Lawmakers are now pushing a bill that would require all public schools to have Narcan, the overdose reversal drug. Ana Valdez spoke with the local community organization and school districts on how this should help students.
The Kansas House of Representatives passes a bill that will help to reduce opioid overdoses across the state. Safe Streets Wichita, a local organization that works to reduce overdoses, says it is important to educate kids about this topic.
It's easy to say one pill can kill, but it's deeper than that. Children are needing pathways to recovery, pathways to determinants of health, such as housing, food, and other social networks and supports.
Most schools in Kansas already carry naloxone. The organization works with the largest district in the state, the Wichita Public Schools District, training staff on how to respond to an overdose.
How to render aid, how to talk to students, and also how to respond to this efficiently.
Community organizations say requiring all schools in Kansas to carry naloxone is a step in the right direction. But providing support and education after an overdose should also be part of this bill.
I think this is a great first step. It could be more. Anything connected to young people should always have pathways to treatment, pathways to recovery, and behavioral health supports.
Other small school districts in Kansas, like Kingman Norwich, say they are actively looking at the bill. And if there are any changes, they will modify and expand naloxone. Safe Streets Wichita says they hope lawmakers work closely with organizations that are already preventing overdoses.
More people should be at the table when we're crafting legislation like this. It needs to be a community-based idea, and it should be community-led, because it's the community truly that's taking care of young people, taking care of people who use drugs, who may overdose.
In Wichita, I'm Ana Valdez, 12 News.
And the bill is now headed to the state Senate for a vote.